Hello, it's me, James. It's good to be here with you today, whenever today is, whatever time you watch this. As you know, I like to have uh, as close to a weekly moment as I possibly can where we can reflect together, encourage, share a word of encouragement, and the like. So, the first word of encouragement I would want to share with you today would be just to remind you that you are infinitely precious and unconditionally loved for the gift you already are. And so am I. And it is important that we be mindful of that because if we can learn to truly accept and love ourselves as we are, oftentimes we find that that opens the door for us to accept and love one another just as the other in our life is, because maybe they're not so other. And maybe a lot of what we didn't like about them was stuff that we didn't like about ourselves that we were projecting on them. So just remember, you're infinitely precious and unconditionally loved for the gift you are. As of yesterday, Ash Wednesday, we are beginning a season in the Christian year, a spiritual season of 40 days of preparation before the season of Easter. It's marked by lots of things. People do lots of different kinds of practices. People give up their favorite foods, for instance. People spend more time fasting. Giving up your favorite food would be fasting, but another form of fasting would be to not eat for a period of time. People take up different practices to remind them of their connection. These 40 days are often seen as commemorating Jesus' 40 days in the wilderness when he kind of clarified his vision about who he was. One of the practices that I have found very meaningful in my life is the practice of sacred reading. In Latin, Lectio Divina, but you don't need to know the Latin. But if someone refers to it, then you'll know what they're talking about. Or maybe you only know it as Lectio Divina, which translates sacred reading or divine reading. I have been for the last 9 days slowly working together with several others on doing Lectio Divina through the prologue of the Gospel of John. Now, I'm going to explain that. The prologue of the Gospel of John is the first 18 verses of chapter 1 of the Christian Bible's story of Jesus' life, entitled John. And those first 18 verses kind of set themselves apart because they may have been an early Christian hymn or something else altogether. But I have come to believe, and scholars seem to say, that this sets the tone for the whole rest of the book, that these 18 verses really kind of point to what it's about. So I wanted to do a deep dive. And by deep dive, starting 9 days ago and continuing until this coming Tuesday, I am trying to read the first 5 verses of the first chapter of the Gospel of John aloud 3 times and then listen for what images arise. Now, you might think it's 5 verses. I mean, what images arise? Does it ever change? Do you hear the same thing over and over again? Does repetition make it lose meaning or gain meaning? You'll have to try it for yourself and see. For me, I find that maybe for a couple of days, I'm caught on an image that keeps rising for me. But this morning, I had one of those awakening moments when something else stood out to me. Part of the practice of sacred reading is this. It is believed that as we listen to the text, not pull out a commentary and try to figure out what Jesus might have been saying 2,000 years ago, or what the author was saying that Jesus was saying 2,000 years ago. Instead of trying to figure that out, we listen to the text, believing that in some way, Spirit can speak to us in a living way right now, that this is not a dead text, that this is a living text, and what makes it living is when we let it come alive to us. Part of the reason why I encourage Lectio Divina as an out loud reading is because it gives it life, the vibration of my vocal cords and the breathing in and out of my lungs, and I can feel actually as I'm talking to you right now, I'm attentive to the fact that I can feel vibration of my voice right now, all the way down to the tips of my toes. I can feel it in the bottom of my feet right now. And I can even feel it vibrating a bit in the top of my head. So those vibrations open us up perhaps to hear or see something different. Sometimes when we read things just to ourselves, which is the way we're ultimately taught to do, to read and just follow it with our eyes, our mind does this wonderful thing for us of correcting things that it doesn't see or skipping over words that don't make sense to it. And so we miss things. Reading it aloud and then reading it 3 times allows us to hear different things each time, perhaps. So this Thursday morning, my 9th day, meant to be my 9th day. I didn't make all 9 days, but my 9th day of lectioning this passage, I heard something rise in me. So what I thought I'd do for you today is just read the text for you once, let you listen to it, and then I'll tell you what image rose for me and why I think it was important in shaping today. Just like all the messages I've received from the same 5 verses have spoken to me things I needed to hear in other days as well, and oftentimes in surprising ways. So I'm reading to you from the Common English Bible. You can read any version you want if you want to do Lectio Divina. In fact, over these last 9 days, I've been trying to change up my version from not every day, but regularly, so that I can hear from different translators, because all translations are interpretations. They're not literal. They are attempts to render the original words. And so they're all interpretations. So I want to hear as many interpretations as I can and perhaps understand what it might be saying to me. But any interpretation, any version you choose will be just fine. So these are the first 5 verses of the Gospel of John, and I want you to listen. You can even close your eyes. You don't have to watch my mouth or watch me even this moment. Listen with me if you would, and listen for a word from the Lord. Reading today from the Gospel of John, chapter 1, beginning in verse 1. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. The Word was with God in the beginning. Everything came into being through the Word, and without the Word, nothing came into being. What came into being through the Word was life, and the life was the light for all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness does not extinguish the light. Let that sit with you for just a moment. It sat with me in a variety of ways over these last 9 days, but this morning, this was the image that stuck with me. These words, and I heard, the life was the light for all people. Interestingly enough, over the last couple of weeks, the 9 days, images of light and darkness, shadow and light, what often seem like opposing forces, but are actually siblings in bringing forth understanding, danced in my head. But today, the phrase for all people. The life was the light for all people. There wasn't any limitation placed on that all. I often place limitations, and others do as well, on who the light and the life is for. And some might say it can be for all people if they choose to believe the right things. I didn't hear that here. I didn't hear those words at all here in the prologue. You're welcome to argue in the comments if you want. I'm not interested. Let's not argue. You may hear it differently, and that's fine. But for me, I was reminded that this life, this light, was meant for all people. The light of the love of God, the light of this embodiment, first of the eternal Christ in Jesus, and then the continued embodiment, and perhaps there was embodiment even before that, um, in each of us, that we give bodily form uh, to this love, to this hope. What makes it real is not that it's an idea that we carry in our head or even in our heart. It's an idea that makes it out of us to all people in the way we speak to every one of those all people, in the way we think about every one of those all people, in the way we see and speak and listen to the words of all people, all people. Now, it's really easy for me to say in some ways that it's for all people, and I believe that the reason it's easy for me to say is because I often consider myself to come from a place of privilege. I'm a white guy. And some people don't feel heard because of the color of their skin or their gender or sexual orientation or any of those kinds of things make folks feel unheard. Their age. The older we get, sometimes the less we feel like some people will listen to us, no matter what level of wisdom we have. And so, in the midst of all of that, we forget that it's for all people. And we think it's for the people who are willing to listen. Only it's even for the people who aren't. It's for all people. This message, this word, it's embedded in all that is. This dream God has for all, and that includes us. But it also includes everyone, even the ones you would just as soon not be included. And we all have a list, if we're honest with ourselves, of who those people are. So just be aware that one of the practices you could do, if you choose to, during this season is for the next 40 days, you could try Lectio Divina. If you can't do it every day, don't do it every day. But make it a regular part of your practice. Sit with the words and let God speak aloud. Read it as if for the first time and anticipate that Spirit may speak something you are startled by and surprised by and enlivened by and encouraged by or called into question by. All those things are possible when we read and listen from the deepest part of ourselves. So make time, give it a try. If not, periodically I'm going to show up and do some more Lectio with you. In addition to my weekly reading, regular thought, I will share that. So I encourage you on today and all days, whenever today is for you, to look for and listen for the echoes of truth that come to you. And remember, you are infinitely precious and unconditionally loved for the gift you are.